Howdy ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to VGU Plays for Stanley Parable. Now like I said in the end of the last part, this time we're going to play it again, but this time I'll be able to speak my mind on a few things, and why I think the Stanley Parable has actually blown my mind. Let's get right in. Because I am liking this for a very specific reason, and the specific reason is mainly because I don't think it's a game, and it's not intended to be a game. I think it's intended to be something else.
This is the story of a
Okay, so this time we will skip, because we know the premise. And we're back in our office, 427. So think of the Stanley Parable like this. You're Stanley, number 427, in an office. Everyone else is gone. You're able to be free for the first time, and let's walk this through.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Notice how the narrator simply tells you what you should do, and the directions where you should go in. Isn't this reminiscent of something else in gaming? Isn't this reminiscent of something you might have done before?
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
Again, the narrator simply telling you to go left instead of going right, yet still giving you a choice. If you go against that choice, the narrator tries to keep you on the straight and narrow path. If you take the correct choice, well, we know what happens. Notice how this is all tying in. Are you thinking that this isn't necessarily unique to this game? It might be teaching you something.
Yet there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
So keep noticing, the narrator keeps telling you where to go, now directing you to go upstairs. Even if you veer off like we did in the original parts, opening up the broom closet and stepping inside.
Stanley stepped into the broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Again, the narrator saying that you're going off the path, convincing you to get back on the right path. Why is this? Why is the game telling you to go to a specific path, yet giving you all these choices? Think about it.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office.
Now we would go upstairs to normally see our boss, but what happens if we go downstairs? We didn't weigh this up last time. Let's dig deep to the underground and see where the story takes us now.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss. Admitting he had left his post during work hours, he might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. All of my co-workers blinking mysteriously out of existence in a single moment for no reason at all? None of it made any logical sense. And as Stanley pondered this, he began to make other strange observations. For example, why couldn't he see his feet when he looked down? Why did doors close automatically behind him wherever he went? And for that matter, these rooms were starting to look pretty familiar. Were they simply repeating? No, Stanley said to himself, this is all too strange. This can't be real. And at last, he came to the conclusion that had been on the tip of his tongue. He just hadn't found the words for it. "I'm dreaming!" he yelled. "This is all a dream." Oh, what a relief Stanley felt to have finally found an answer, an explanation. His co-workers weren't actually gone. He wasn't going to lose his job. He wasn't crazy after all. And he thought to himself, I suppose I'll wake up soon. I'll have to go back to my boring real-life job pushing buttons. I may as well enjoy this while I'm still lucid. So, he imagined himself flying and began to gently float above the ground. Then he imagined himself soaring through space on a magical starfield, and it too appeared. It was so much fun, and Stanley marveled that he had still not woken up. How was he remaining so lucid? And then perhaps the strangest question of them all entered Stanley's head. One he was amazed he hadn't asked himself sooner. Why is there a voice in my head dictating everything that I'm doing and thinking? Now the voice was describing itself being considered by Stanley, who found it particularly strange. I'm dreaming about a voice describing me, thinking about how it's describing my thoughts, he thought. And while he thought it all very odd and wondered if this voice spoke to all people in their dreams, the truth was that, of course, this was not a dream. How could it be? Was Stanley simply deceiving himself, believing that if he's asleep he doesn't have to take responsibility for himself? Stanley is as awake right now as he's ever been in his life. Now, hearing the voice speak these words was quite a shock to Stanley. After all, he knew for certain, beyond a doubt, that this was in fact a dream. Did the voice not see him float and make the magical stars just a moment ago? How else would the voice explain all that? This voice was a part of himself too. Surely, if he could just... He would prove it. He would prove that he was in control, that this was a dream. So he closed his eyes gently, and he invited himself to wake up. He felt the cool weight of the blanket on his skin, the press of the mattress on his back, the fresh air of a world outside this one. Let me wake up, he thought to himself. I'm through with this dream. I wish it to be over. Let me go back to my job. Let me continue pushing the buttons. Please, it's all I want. I want my apartment and my wife and my job. All I want is my life exactly the way it's always been. My life is normal. I am normal. Everything will be fine. I am okay. Stanley began screaming. Please, someone, wake me up. My name is Stanley. I have a boss. I have an office. I am real. Please, just someone tell me I am real. I must be real. I must be. Can anyone hear my voice? Who am I? Who am I? And everything went black. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, gathered her belongings, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. And although she would soon turn to go call for an ambulance, for just a few brief moments she considered the strange man. He was obviously crazy, this much she knew. Everyone knows what crazy people look like. And in that moment, she thought to herself how lucky she was to be normal. I am sane. I am in control of my mind. I know what is real and what isn't. It was comforting to think this, and in a certain way, seeing this man made her feel better. But then she remembered the meeting she had scheduled for that day, the very important people whose impressions of her would affect her career, and by extension, the rest of her life. She had no time for this, so it was only a moment that she stood there, staring down at the body. And then she turned and ran.
Okay, so that was an interesting ending. But look where we end up. We end up back in the office. Back in 427. And why is this? The game itself is telling us something. Trying to show us something outside the reaches of the Stanley Parable itself. It's trying to teach you a lesson. And that lesson is in games design. Yes, the Stanley Parable is one of the best lessons in games design in the current generation. Still not getting it? Well, let's see if we can't try again, shall we?
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Again, think about it. Linear doorways, a narrative, guiding you, telling you where you're supposed to go. Does it remind you of most linear gameplay, most linear storylines? Option to go against the norm, yet constantly pushing you to go back onto the right path. Does this remind you of games like Journey and other games that do not like it when you go outside the boundaries?
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well. Perhaps he wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it. Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Again, telling you to get back on the right path as you keep going further and further away. Yet again, like most linear storyline games, forcing you to make the choice that you don't necessarily want to make.
And so he detoured through the maintenance section, walked straight ahead to the opposite door, and got back on track.
Now this is giving us a different choice this time round. But yet again, if we veer off the path, will we end up back at the office? There's only one way to find out. Again, think about it. A linear story forcing you to go down a specific path, not liking it when you go off that path. Yet when you go off the path,
but Stanley
the
didn't want to
narrative
go back
changes.
to the office. He wanted to wander about and get even further off track. So now in order to get back, he needed to go, from here it's, left.
I wonder, now that it's given us the option to go left, can we go right? The answer to that is no, so now it's just forcing you to go down a linear
Oh,
path.
no, it's to the right, my mistake.
Oh, it's just making a laugh of it all.
No, not the right. Why would I have ever said it was to the right? What was I thinking? It's clearly... Oh dear, would you hold on for a minute, please? Now, let's see. We went down right, left, down, left, right. Yep, okay, yes. I've got it now. This story is absolutely, definitely this way.
And now the game takes a different turn. But do we still end up in the place where we've been before? We'll find out.
No. This isn't right at all. You're not supposed to be here yet. This is all a spoiler. Quick, Stanley, close your eyes. Okay. We just have to get back to, oh, who am I kidding? It's all rubbish now. The whole story completely unusable. How about, rather than waste my time trying to salvage this nonsense, we'll just restart the game from the beginning. And this time, suppose we don't wander so far off track, Okay, from the top.
And again, we try and veer away from the norm, and we get pushed back to the beginning again. You see, ladies and gentlemen, the Stanley Parable is not simply a game. The Stanley Parable is a lesson in linear games design. You gotta think, with all the options that you have in a video game that's supposed to be open world, is it truly an open world? Is it truly giving you that choice you've always wanted to make? Or is it just lying to you? Changing the path as it goes along to eventually force you back onto the path where you originally came from. Think about that. And think about the fact that the Stanley Parable isn't necessarily a game, but more like a lesson in games design as a whole. As I leave you now with that thought in your head, I hope you have enjoyed checking out what the Stanley Parable is like, and I hope you understand where I'm coming from with my own personal thoughts. I'm Don the Expert at Coles from VideoGamesUncovered.com, and I'll be seeing you on the other side.